and change you'll ever get is from God. It's going to come from the Lord, or it's not going to come at all. It's going to come when you admit that you can't do it and that you've got to have His help.
When it comes to prophecy, you don't know what's going to unfold. We know it's going to be supernatural. That's why the normal person is not going to make it through it. They will trust in an entity or a set of entities that work in very strange ways. And if I were to tell you that it's happening now, most of you would scorn me. There's been no precept for what's taking place. See, because many people are looking for the supernatural, right? Like the attacks of demons. That's already happening. What do you think you played in your mind? Okay, guys, let me put it this way. Do you remember your parents? How they did struggle with certain things, but they never mentally struggled, did they? They struggled by way of work. They struggled to make incomes. Some of them, not all. But they did not struggle mentally. In fact, mentally, they were somewhat together. As a whole, the society had very sharp minds. They didn't have computers. They didn't have to push button and everything works. They actually had to use their minds. They had their problems, but they thought differently. And when we were children, although we had issues in school and everything else, it was nothing like it is today. We were free to a degree. Now with computers, we're not free. You can't walk away. And when you sit down with computers, it does nothing but wear you out. And we have a strong reliance upon computers, upon our cell phones. And we think that is cool. Most importantly, back in the time with our parents and grandparents, they knew that word church. They believed in Sunday. The laws were different. If a man did something in public, he was looked down upon by those who were Christian. And our parents had no problem telling anybody they are wrong. Today, they don't care to tell anybody they're wrong. Today, we're full of entertainment. And in doing those things, we have no strength. We're breaking down in our own lives, and nothing is really taking place. So let's talk about this. A small people. Let's call that an insignificant people. A tiny country. Think about that. A tiny people from a few. Insignificant. He comes up from a small people. Insignificant. They don't like them. Small people. You know what? I have a habit of anybody in leadership. I tend to look at where they came from to see, because there are a certain number of, now small people could be a group. It could be a faith. A small people. See, in this day and age, most countries are large, except a few who are tiny. Listen, he shall enter in peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, the spoil, the riches, yea. And he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. Who is the king of the south? Lots of people think that is Egypt. There's a problem. Egypt does not house or maintain, or they don't have the prince of the covenant, the king of the south. How do I know that? We continue to read in context. And he shall stir up his power against the courage. He shall stir up his power and his courage against king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to do battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast his devices against him. So he stirs up his courage, his power, to go to war with the king of the south. But listen what it says. The king of the south shall be stirred up to do battle with a very great and mighty army. Now remember, this guy comes from the northern region. Israel is in the southern region. It says, but and the southern king will be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. It's not some nitpicky army. Very great and mighty. They shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they shall feed of the portion of his meat. It says, yea, they that feed of a portion of his meat shall destroy him. What is that all about? Meat is your propaganda. When you consume the words of the president and you take them into your heart and you begin to live by them, that is considered meat. Follow me on this. This is Daniel chapter 11. Meat is something that sustains your body. And if you're living by the words of men, the words of men are going to fail you. And then guess what happens? You get angry and you say it's their fault. I followed their instructions and it blew up in my face. So those that feed of a portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both these kings' hearts, their hearts, shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Now, why would these two kings, this beastly one and another king, sit down at one table? It's politics, like the United Nations. You know, when they sit down and they start speaking, they do nothing but elevate themselves. Lie. They speak things they have no intention of doing. That's called political tactics. So when you're in politics, often you're engaged in a debate. Well, in a debate, you lie. The purpose is to get the other person to bend to your proposal. That's the purpose. And you do everything you can do within a certain range, a certain scope to convince them. So that's why it's written, 27, both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at an appointed time. Listen, then shall he return to his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant. So he sits down at a table with the king of the south. They tell lies at one table. Now remember, if they don't like each other, so if they don't like each other, what's happening here? They're making an agreement because of who? Why would they sit down at one table? Folks, stay with me. Why would they sit down at one table? You have one guy from the north. You've seen this. You have seen this. Let me explain. Let me jar your memory. We're talking about a king of the north. We're speaking about the prince of the covenant. Daniel chapter 11, starting at verse 20, we're speaking of two individuals, one from the north, one in the south. Daniel describes the king of the south as the prince of the holy covenant. God only recognizes one covenant, no other covenant. And we know what that is. So this king of the south and the king of the north are peculiar, especially the king of the north. See, if you start reading Daniel chapter 11, you're given a history of the king of the north. If you follow that in history, you're going to see two specific countries. Not one, you're going to see two. One was nearly destroyed, and it came back. It exists today. Oh, and the world wondered after the beast, whose deadly wound was healed. The heads of the beast, are they not nations? The kingship of that nation, and it came back. It had a deadly wound and was healed. Most people look at that and they say, oops, somebody's going to get shot in the head. That's not what the Bible says. It explains to people what the heads are. It explains to people what the horns are. It explains to people these things. We're so used to listening to what was popular. Sometimes we fail to hear the truth. The truth never came from the lips of man unless God gave it to him. So you have this king of the north. They don't give him the honor of the kingdom. They don't want him. This is so amazing. So he steps in anyway. He wins over people by flatteries. And then he convinces the king of the south that somehow he's okay. This is happening in the Middle East. This is not happening in the US of A. This is happening in the Middle East. So he convinces him he's okay. Verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, or yes, also the prince of the covenant. So he tricks all of them into believing him. Let's continue to read here. So, and then it says, and after a league made with many, he shall work deceitfully. Well, if he's working deceitfully, nobody can see what he's actually doing. And because he's so deceitful, he covers up. He's raising an army, and no one knows it. That's why, here we go, Patty. That's why he shall work deceitfully, for it gives the cause. Every time it says for, it's giving a cause. He shall work deceitfully because, or this is the reason why, or this is how he's doing it, for this purpose, and it gives you the origin. He shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. Now stop. He's already positioned as the king of the north, but he's secretly raising an army that starts from a tiny people. And you know what, like Russia. Let's talk about, I know people get offended when you talk about Russia. Well, sorry. Vladimir Putin is in fact training forces, and they have many forces. You would not believe the forces he has behind him. Not the country. Forget about the country. They are loyal to him. He's been raising up. He's been teaching and training all this time. They've had live exercises. They did the impossible by taking Crimea. They did not use standard Russian. Do you guys remember that they kept asking, are these Russian soldiers? There was confusion about who was doing what. And inside Crimea, what do they have? Special operatives that were deadly accurate. See, if they're novices, they can't defend a position like that. They can't engage an aircraft like that. They can't coordinate and be so efficient like that. They can't do that. That's impossible. They were communicating so fast, and the coordination was perfect, and the execution was deadly, and many died. And after that, the regular troops stood in the place of the other troops that were there. Because you remember, they didn't want the cameras recording the forces that were in Crimea. You remember that? It was almost like this big worldly secret that nobody could see. Then the big shocker, after our space shuttle program, Russia says, oh, we can get you up there in our taxi service. Why have they not shut down and we shut down? See, we don't pay attention to anything. But he's not by himself. You'll see this in a moment. He enters in peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province. Do you guys remember Russia setting up a naval base in the Middle East? Do you guys remember that? He came in peaceably and set up. See, it's not about Putin. It's about what he is positioning. It's about the positions of things in the Middle East. He set up a naval base. He tried to push in further than Syria, but guess what happened? The United Nations came against him because of Israel. Israel said, no. The other country said, no, you stay right up there. Now listen, let me read this. He shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. Who has a great army right now? It says a great and mighty army. You remember when he set up in the Middle East with the UN Council, Security Council, got together and put a limitation on how far he could go. You remember they pushed him back a little bit? You guys remember that? They said, you can't come that far in there. You remember? He lost his poise. He lost his kindness. He began to get a little mean, and he was trying to Vladimir Putin established a military base, a joint military base with who? Who was with him? China. A joint military base in China. In fact, Vladimir Putin also, he set up early warning systems that covers the Middle East. I couldn't believe it. He did that right in front of people's faces, and they did not report it. They did not report that Vladimir Putin set up an early warning system over Iran, over Syria, over Turkey. Nothing can enter into airspace in the Middle East and do anything. Why? Because Russia can detect it. Now that's not an ordinary detection system. And it covers the whole province of China where the tie-in link is, because what he's using is a Russian-Chinese device. What did we do? Fall asleep? We're doing the same thing we did in the 80s. In the 80s, we enjoyed the technology so much, and we had so much fun, that the devil came in, sowed seeds, and left. And we are dealing with a mess. So listen, he comes in with a great and mighty army. He stirs up his power. He's got a plan. He stirs up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to do battle with a very great and mighty army, but it shall not stand. So the king of the south is also stirred up, saying, how dare you? We got to watch ourselves. You guys remember the headlines? Israel is watching itself. They said, we got to watch it. He's pulling in close. We don't know what he's going to do. So you remember they became kind of aggressive? Do you guys remember this? Did we fall asleep? They entertained us with distraction articles so we couldn't see the placement of what was happening. And where did they go? Straight to the UN. Who was there? Benjamin Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin, everybody. My. So he says, The king of the south was stirred up to do battle. They were ready to do battle. You remember that? Israel said, they said on the news when Russia did that and all the forces were out there and the U.S. they were thinking about putting the no-fly zones and Russia said no and the U.S. backed off and Israel said, we are ready to defend ourselves. They said this on TV like 20 times. They said, we're ready to defend ourselves. They were not talking about Syria. They were talking about Russia, because Russia was helping Syria, but they had their placement in Syria and in Turkey. Now we are in Turkey, America. So they positioned themselves and set up a naval base to stop our ships. Listen, why in the world would Russia put a naval base in a place where the U.S., where Israel and allies already have their ships? Russia is not considered an ally. It says, 27, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at an appointed time. It says, then shall he return to his own land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. Now, it's so funny how this works. And at the time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south. Listen. But the ships of Shittim shall come against him. So at an appointed time, he's going to return and come toward the south. But it shall not be as the former or the latter. What's happening right now? Oh boy, see, what's happening right now? A tactical change is happening right now. Brand new ships are being built. 16 have been deployed. Money has been spent. New weaponry is being installed right now. Every time they have a problem on the Gaza Strip, everybody pays attention to that. And Palestine, in the meanwhile, what they're doing is what? They're building weapons beyond imagination. You remember President Trump was bragging, and he was telling what Israel was building, what they had. And do you not know that the U.S. has an underground military establishment in that area? And don't you know that Israel, underneath Israel, are facilities that would blow your mind? Israel is a hornet's nest, but they know they're going to suffer casualties unless they overwhelm them, where they cannot pull any of those vehicles underground out. That's the same thing Saddam Hussein did. You know, the Gulf War ended. When it was ended, when people were going home, EOD would go out to certain areas. There was one specific mission I went out on. They lifted up a very heavy piece of the ground, moved it out of the way. We went down there, and I'm telling you, I saw with my own eyes a great hangar on the ground. The roof was so far in the sky. We went down in a vehicle. We drove through these winding turns and everything else to get to the bottom. I'm telling you, Saddam Hussein looked like he had at least 3 cities under the ground, and one of them was ancient, and he had chemical weapons stored in there. And on one of them, I went to the other one to see, but some trouble began. Now I was exposed to chemical weapons. That was the second time. But this one was a blister agent. It's not fun. And that one kind of got me. We don't know how. We think that the entrance was booby-trapped, but it was huge on the inside. And in there, they had endless supplies of tactical gear, uniforms, boots. I'm talking about an endless supply. They were getting it from everybody, and we saw a lot of USA on there. Nomenclatures on things. That is our equipment. It was all in Saddam Hussein had this stuff. I'm talking about vehicles. I'm talking about aircraft. They were down there. He could not get them off the ground for some odd reason. All he had to do was open the doors, and he could have launched 200 aircraft into the air. I'm talking about aircraft that would have matched ours, but he did not do it. No one knows why. He had the time, he had the resources, but he did not do it. No one knows why. He did believe that he was of an ancient descent. He really did believe. He was like Nebuchadnezzar. He really believed that. Anyway, in his heart, he wants to go against the Holy Covenant. Look what happens. But the ships of Shittim shall come against them. Therefore, he shall be grieved and return. So when he sees the setup of the naval forces, he turns around and he goes back. Because of naval forces, he turns around and goes back. He sees the ships of Shittim. That has happened more than a few times. It discourages someone from popping in there, doing anything, from setting up shop. They go back. It says, for the ships of Shittim shall come against them. Therefore he shall be grieved and return. Here it comes. And have indignation against the Holy Covenant. There it is again. He shall have indignation against the Holy Covenant. Now he is implacable concerning the Holy Covenant. Now he cannot be comforted because he is angry at Israel. Now it went through this stage. At first, he flattered Israel, and they fell for it. They embraced the flattery, right? But then his plan came to life after his soldiers were ready. And he tries to go against Israel. But through politics, he could not succeed. The end result of those armies, when they were stirred up to do battle with one another, they pleaded their case at a table. Whose table? Likely, right now in this day and age, the UN, the United Nations, if they were there at one table, which they were, because Russia has a voice at the UN. All the enemies have a voice at the UN. And they do tell lies at one table because they know that they're not able to do everything they say they're going to do. And with politics, you have to lie on purpose. You flatter folks and you use scare tactics to change folks. They were at one table. So he stirs up his power. They go to the UN or something like that. They lie to each other, which means if they lie to each other, there is some type of agreement. But the prince of this, or the king of the south, returns to his own land. He does exploits in his own land. He returns with great riches. Do you know what happened? No, you don't. Do you know what happened when Russia went to Syria? Why would they go there in the first place? Why would you go defend someone so tiny, so broken and tiny, busted up and tiny? Syria is kaput, isn't it? So then why in the world would anybody seek to go there to defend them? I'll tell you why. Because in Syria, he doubled. I bet you he doubled Russia's economy. He doubled their economy. There was something in Syria that men would right now fight over for the rest of their lives because it would give them a gain on everybody. See, the oil of this day and age is discovered. Controlling that discovery are scientists. Scientists tend to use rare elements. They like to mine things, to pull up elements, to fuel new experiments. And it just so happens that the Middle East is rich in what? Let me give you this. Most of these countries have equipment that require what? Voltage, high voltage. But when the technology of lithium came out, and they have different grades of lithium, lithium became a very, that was a very good commodity, right? But where you find lithium, you find a host of other exotic materials like element 114, heavy metals with strange properties that have the ability to withstand pressure, heat, and cold. Imagine a piece of insulation 1/8 of an inch thick surrounding a bubble, and they shoot you or put you in Antarctica with no heat, no anything. That density of that material would protect you for the rest of your life. And it's a superconducting material, so it would power anything you ever had. If it can power anything you ever had, it can also rejuvenate. Like Afghanistan. Why do you think we're in Afghanistan? Think about it. Why have we been there? That's why no one really wanted the Gulf War, because they knew that if we went there, we could never come back. But they were already in Afghanistan prior to the Gulf War. Anyway, naval forces discourage him. He says, they have naval forces. I can't pull this off. This is verse 30. For the ships of Shittim shall come against them. Therefore, he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. We know what that is, the Holy Covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them, plural, that forsake the Holy Covenant. He's going to have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. But who is he going to bring it to? Why would you bring someone information to overtake them? That's called politics. All the while, he's been building an army, a secret army, an army nobody can see. Because look what happens next. And arms shall stand on his part. Now this one gets me big time. So I want you guys to listen. This one, don't let it scare you. So the ships of Shittim come against him. Therefore, he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. So shall he do. What's that mean? He's speaking in a very strange way. I've noticed something about countries. They are very flattering, aren't they? They have come to America, and when they get back to their countries, they go back into politics mode. See, personally, they're just men and women. Collectively, with their governments, they take a stance. I remember last week, a few weeks ago, the president was talking to China. As soon as China got back home, they were talking about stopping trade with the U.S. in certain items and lifting prices, and they were against this, they were against that. But they didn't say any of that when they were here. So what are we talking about here? About these people from the north, the kings of the north and the south. We're specifically speaking not toward the individual, but toward their governmental systems. Are we not? He's going to have intelligence with them that also forsake the Holy Covenant. It's very important for you. So he goes back to his country. Now you got to follow me on this. He goes back to his country. He starts talking to people who also forsake the Holy Covenant to get some type of policy, to build a plan against them. Now this is so curious. I'm not saying this is Russia. I'm saying this is people from the northern regions of Israel. Now listen to me. It states, he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. How do you do that? He's going to return with them who forsake the Holy Covenant. Who forsakes the Holy Covenant? Iran. Who forsakes the Holy Covenant? Jordan. Who forsakes the Holy Covenant? Lots of folks. All of the Middle East, to a certain degree, does this. Now watch this. When Russia was here, and America, at first, did not really talk to him. And then we did through President Trump. But after he spoke with Trump and had that meeting, what did he do? He went right back and signed papers with China, with Iran. They showed it on the news. He went back to those countries who always state that Israel should burn. See, you're forgetting, in the Islamic religion, one of their prophetic signs is Israel burning up. The indignation is in their book. So then they're having a prophecy that Israel shall burn. And at the same time Israel is burning, so is the United States of America. Tearing it up. Oh, don't mess it up. Don't do it. Okay, so we're messing up. No, we're not. He goes out. He makes an alliance with China, North Korea, Iran. Who did that? Russia. Vladimir Putin, unlike any other Russian president, has been all over the world. He threw out the way they normally operated. See, it was never about the person. This is called nation positioning. This, my friends, is nation positioning. Which means what? He's not trying to be evil. He's being maneuvered, and he does not know it. He really does not know it. Now listen, it says, after he does this, he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. God is allowing us to see exactly who he has intelligence with. Who? Those who forsake the Holy Covenant. What religion in this world forsakes the Holy Covenant? Islam. Do you see that? Folks, Daniel 30 tells us something straight to our faces, yet it's hardly mentioned. Oh, the Lord is just revealing things in his time. He says, it says here, he shall even return. Who? The king of the north. He shall even return and have intelligence with them, plural, that forsake the Holy Covenant. With them is a people who forsake the Holy Covenant in our time, who would that be? That would be a people of a faith that forsakes the Holy Covenant. See, to forsake the Holy Covenant is spiritual, is something ancient. They forsake the Holy Covenant because they believe that those who occupy Israel should not be there. The entire religion forsakes the Holy Covenant. So you have the king of the north teaming up with those who forsake the Holy Covenant. Folks, follow this one. And it states, and arms shall stand on his part. What are arms? Armies shall stand on his part. Listen, this is so important also. And they, plural, shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that make it desolate. That is, to make it desolate, it is emptied out. They made it desolate. Now, a lot of us have looked at this, and we have said, hey, what's going on here? When is the abomination of desolation? And a lot of people believe something. They believe that a man is going to stand in the temple and proclaim himself as God. Oh my. In the New Testament, we were told exactly what the temple is. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God? Know ye not? Don't you know this, that you're the temple of God? But something is standing in the temple of God, you that shouldn't be there. Something is in the temple of God. The vessels of God, something is in there. Oh my. He shall... I'm getting ahead of myself. So then, he takes away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. You know, historically, the temple was the place of worship. They're on that wall right now, praying and leaving prayers in that wall, because they believe that one day everything is going to be handed back to them. But why? I believe it will too. How? By God Almighty. But why? Because they polluted the sanctuary of strength. What is the sanctuary of strength? That is the key to know exactly what the sanctuary of strength is. Lots of people spend their time trying to find out who the Antichrist is. I've learned something. That does one no good, because we're talking about something spiritual. But rather, I've looked into nation placement, and it becomes clear. Listen to me. It says, he'll take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. And such as do wickedly against the Holy Covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. Like he's saying, oh, it's okay, you should do that. That's what you should do. In other words, he's going to pump up the Islamic religion enough to make it win, to make it prosperous over the Christians, over the home and the birthplace of Christ, the Christians, the sanctuary of strength. What do you think? God is going to crack it when it comes back? Jesus will crack it because it is defiled. It is no more the holy place. And the holy place is the kingdom of the living God that will descend out of heaven, called the New Jerusalem. That is the holy place. Why? Because everything on earth is defiled. If it was not, how could they enter into this land? And God permitted. God is jealous of his land, and no one can step into his land lest God permitted that. And here they come, stepping in. A horrible time. Verse 32, and such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their God shall be strong to exploits. A lot of people stop right there because of a period. You can't stop right there. Let's read this in context so we're not fooling ourselves. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their God shall be strong to exploits, and they shall be, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, and by captivity, and by spoil many days. Now you've heard that in context. Here it goes again. But the people that do know their God shall be strong to exploits, and they shall understand among the people, shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, and by captivity, and by spoil many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be hoping, that is to be helped with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flatteries. Flattery is like, hey, we're going to help you. Hang up the phone. Hey, we're going to go to the UN and set a policy, because they can't do that. That's another 5 months. By flatteries. telling people exactly what they want to hear. That's what flattery is. So when all these people fall, remember, many will fall by the sword. What is that? War, by that great army, and by flame. God said he will, listen, in Revelation, why are they going to be killed by flame? God's talking about his own people. And why is he talking about flames? We should know Revelation. Why is he talking about flames? Let me tell you why. What does he would do? Well, this is going to offend. See, when I go through Revelation as a study, or the book of Daniel as a study, lots of people listen until you get to the part where the truth is told, and then people can't stomach it. So let me read this. So it says here, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days. Well, if you're instructing someone, didn't we read that earlier today? That man instructs, many will instruct you in the Word of God, but you better seek the Holy Spirit. So we know we're talking about Christians, people who follow Christ Jesus, people who follow and have faith. So they're going to instruct many, yet they're going to fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by spoil many days. Why? Listen to this. I'm going to read something in Revelation. It's going to be offensive. So I'm going to say I'm sorry beforehand, but here it goes. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. There it is again. Why is that description? It says, and they shall fall by the sword, by flame, by captivity, by spoil, many days. Now we just read what's going to happen to the whore that sits atop the beast. And it says, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate, the abomination of desolation. It's going to be desolate, and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. What is this, eat her flesh? I'll tell you what that is. Do you guys understand what that is? Eat her flesh. Didn't Jesus say that we're to eat his flesh? What does that mean? Oh, and see, now we're into something else. Come on, we have to explain this. We see these descriptions, but listen. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Listen, for God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. Did you hear that? He put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. What is his will? He just described it. He said, and the 10 kings and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Now listen, this element I'm just speaking of with the 10 kings is also in Daniel 11 verse 31. So God puts it in the hearts of these. Who are these 10 kings? That is part of the beast. Who's riding atop the beast? She is not smiling. To sit atop a beast is to have a death sentence. See, you guys have to understand this. She's not smiling. I've seen people paint pictures of Revelation, a woman smiling on the beast. She is not smiling. Why do I know that? Let's continue to read. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God should be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. There is only one place that can reign over the kings of the earth. The only way to reign over the kings of the earth is to do so by way of God's hand. God must permit that. God must empower that nation to do that. Only the Father can do that, and he's already done it. But listen to this. This woman is hated. And he said unto me, well, listen, it says this. You ready for this? And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as of yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are the peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, and the 10 kings are the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast. These shall hate the whore. It's going to kill her. They hate her. Who hates an element in this earth? A faith. We're talking about faith here. You hate due to your belief. Or how can you hate? When you meet someone you don't like, it's because they're against something you believe in. That is hatred. Hatred is separation. They hate the whore. Who else? Now, if they hate the whore, she's riding atop them. Why is she atop them? The Lord taught us. The beast is not moving. It is stationary. She's in the middle of something. Who's in the middle of something? Israel shall be surrounded by her enemies. All nations will surround Israel. What does the beast represent? All nations. All of them. None excluded. Why in the world would anybody, somebody would ask this question, why in the world would anybody ever associate Israel with this? Why would they do this? Well, how can one see, you have to know the Old Testament. God called one land and one land only. The land that caused his indignation. His indignation will first come upon a place he named. Jeremiah talked about it too. A place he named, and it will not be turned away. Amos talked about it too. What's the other book, guys? Because we had Daniel, we had Habakkuk, we had Amos. Amos really talks about it for all those transgressions. And for one, he's telling us something. If you break that down and seriously look at it, your ears will open. You're going to see exactly who's being talked about. Because God said, I would have given her a letter of divorce. Now, what people don't understand, it says this. There was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Now, to be the mother of harlots, plural, then you have other harlots, but to be the mother, you have to be the first one, the very first harlot. You know that God called Israel a harlot because she fornicated with those around her. Thus, he exiled them into Babylon, and they became the daughter of Babylon because they went there and prospered even more. And they became a burden to the Lord. Mystery Babylon is hidden Babylon, and something hidden is not obvious. There are 2 Babylons in Revelation. 2, not 1, 2. One is a mystery Babylon. The other is the world. The world has become Babylon. Mystery Babylon is on the head of that woman. God said Israel had a whore's forehead. God said that. That means Israel was stamped. We have to know this. It's not popular. You start telling this truth and people will fight you in the face. They might punch you in the face. They get angry. You tell a falsehood, no one gets angry. They say, ooh, that's interesting. You tell the truth, everybody gets mad. That's how you know it's the truth, because flesh responds to truth, but it embraces something of itself. And if something is not flesh, the flesh is going to go against it. So when you tell a truth and a person gets physically mad, because if you're mad with a physical response, you're mad because you don't like it. Your flesh does not like it, and thus you respond in a specific way. The word of God irritates the flesh, but the flesh is not irritated by its own. The flesh accepts anything popular to the world is wrong. God said, if man embraces it, all of them, you had better let it go. Because man is full of flesh, and flesh is contrary to the spirit. All these things that are popular, that people readily accept, you better ask the Father, don't you live your life. Now we learned tonight something else through Paul, didn't we? Do not live your life by the meat of men. And then tonight, those that eat of a portion of his meat shall destroy him. Listen to what the whore does, because she went into Babylon. Do you know what happened to Babylon? Babylon was destroyed. The 10 horns which you saw upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate. Number 1, and naked. Desolate and naked. And shall eat her flesh. Number 2, burn her with fire. These kings have no kingdom as of yet, but will 1 hour with the beast. God said, Israel reigns over the kings of the earth. All other kingdoms fell. All the other kingdoms are part of the beast system. She reigns over the kings of the earth, but they hate her. Don't you get it? She reigns over the kings of the earth, but they hate her. Now listen, America has a special place in prophecy. What do you guys think America really is? What was this nation formed upon the most? Greece. Grecian. This country is based on a lot of Greek philosophies, Roman and Grecian philosophies. That's why we have iconography from Egypt, the small remnants of Greece. We are Greece. Greece was known for the entertainment. Greece was known for what else? Now, Rome was known for politics and the Senate. Greece was known for entertainment, innovation, wisdom and strength, smart, science. That's what Greece was known for. My, we have to have history so that we can understand the elements in which God speaks. And we have all the tools, but now what we're missing is a leading from the Holy Spirit that we may find these things and not have questions about them to the point where it aggravates us. You can have that knowledge. The question is, are you ready for it? Because the very thing you love could be something that will be condemned. So we go back to Daniel. This woman sitting atop the beast, amazing. I'm going to do short, tiny studies on some of these things in the whole story, because the whole story is in depth about things biblically that are sitting right in front of our faces, and we refuse to see them because we're trying to control our lives, and you should lose control of your life. The truth. All right, guys. Let's see. So they set up the abomination of desolation. Zechariah is fulfilled in that context. He starts, now this is long in the book of Daniel. It's very long when this guy starts setting up tons of things, right? For example, it says, and some of them, 35, verse 35, Daniel 11, and some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because is yet for a time appointed. And the king shall do according to his will, and shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god. Now listen to that. Above every god. That is something to me. Some of them understanding shall fall. You know, can I say this? The Lord showed me a long time ago something about me. I'm going to share a small part of it. The Lord showed me that I was captured. I went to this place where there were empty buildings, and I was put in one of those buildings. Another guy was put in a building beside me. Time went on. We were locked away. Couldn't get out of that facility. No hope of getting out. We would sit on a concrete slab and talk about our problems and what we remembered. But most of all, because we were hungry and thirsty, because they would not feed us. We were dying. We were slowly dying, and that was the plan. They left us in that place, and they never came back. They locked us in a place, and they never came back. We hunted all over the place, me and that guy. No food, little water, dirty water. We began to die. So we were on this concrete slab, and the guy started losing faith. When in this dream, I was so hurt because I wanted him to hang on. That was my purpose, motivation. And he wouldn't do it. He really gave up. But I'm going to share what I felt in my heart. I was at the end of my rope. I was powerless in the flesh. No voice at that time. I was so weak, so tempted to just say, forget it. It was almost as if they locked us up to renounce Christ. They left us in there. They renounced. If we had renounced Christ, we would have gotten out, because I remember encouraging him to keep the faith all the way up until the end. And he kept saying, God is not coming. It seemed like in that dream that we went through this for years, and there was a real thirst and hunger, and that causes damage to the body. At the end, he was about to lose hope. I don't know where he went, but I know he was gone. I was left. I looked up at the stars, and I began to remember meals and how things tasted, and when I was healthy, everything stripped. And then all of a sudden, I said, Lord, during the highest point of temptation, I told him I still believed. When I was at the end of my rope about to die, a vortex formed over top of me. And that vortex came down. I knew at that time that was it. I was okay. But it hurt me deep in the heart because somehow I could sense something was coming. Even with I had hopelessness, but I was still going forward in the name of the Lord. But I had hopelessness. All I could do is trust in the Lord, ladies and gentlemen. That changed my life forever. It was also a question, would you go through this for my name's sake? This is going to be your end. You'll be stripped down of all things. You'll have nothing. Here am I willing to say, I'll serve you, Lord, no matter what the conditions are. I'll believe in you, Lord, no matter what the conditions are. And you know what? At that young age, I said yes. But I was deeply, listen, to know that, you know how you have a dream, and there's no question if that dream is real or not. This one, there's no question. I knew what I was getting into. I know the consequences. I never go into something where I'm shocked. I'm never shocked about anything, right? I did so anyway. I accepted what I saw before me. In doing that, many things changed in my life. A testimony of someone who was locked away and forgotten. That's my testimony. Stripped of all things, but still, at the end of his rope, will say yes to the Lord. Knowing what I'm going through, I'm telling you now. Yes, it's tough. Yes, these things are coming. Yes, America is involved. America will not escape what happens to Israel. Nothing can happen to Israel. This army cannot go into Israel so long as we are allies with it. Something happens to us. We can't protect them. We are their only ally. See, it's a scripture in the Bible concerning the end days. And God says to Israel, where are the things you trusted in? Where is your helpful nation now? Call unto your helpful nation. A helpful nation is only mentioned one time. The rest are mentioned just like they are in Daniel. It's in the King James Version of the Bible. It is something you can find. But there's a sentence upon America, upon her personal ally. I'm going to ask you guys something. If God were to take everything from you, and you knew it was coming, if God were to even have your health collapse, if the Lord would put you in conditions that you can barely stand, would you still say yes to Him? Because if you say yes, you will still do things in His name. You will never withhold something that you'll do in the name of Jesus, and to the point of death. Though the thought may enter into your mind, you will not say no. You will say yes, Lord, and you will never say no, even to the point of death. Will you do that in truth? Will you, if God were to take everything, still call Jesus your Savior? You understand Jesus more than most. Most see Jesus as some person who questionnaires. What do you believe? Because as we go forward, strange events will take place. Most people live their life for a blessing. What's forming upon the earth is challenging. I hope and pray that you guys adore one another and realize the gift that God has given you, the gift of fellowship. It's an awful place being alone. But the Lord saw fit to bring us together. Folks, I want to say, as these things continue to set up in the Lord's hands, you'll find safety. That is within the shadow of the Almighty, the secret place of the Most High. His name is Christ. Whatever your call is, commit yourself to that call. This is not your eternity, but you're soon to be born, dead or alive, to be born.